Have you ever wondered what causes some people to be difficult? We need to acknowledge that some of us, at some point in our lives, have experienced trauma. Trauma basically impacts how you respond to situations as well as to other people that you interact with. It can actually be used as a defense mechanism. Having experienced past traumas can actually cause you to have trust issues in the present, because it makes it very difficult for you to see that people who you're dealing with now won't treat you like the people who did in the past. It's almost like that trauma, it's almost like you project that trauma onto other people who have not caused you the trauma. So as soon as somebody starts shouting at you as an adult, you become suspicious of them, and it's easy for you to just close off from them and not interact with them because it has triggered that response or that memory that you have from your past trauma. And another thing that can also contribute to this is how you were socialized. And I've spoken about this matter quite a number of times, because we need to remember that how we were raised affects how we behave in the present and how we interact with people in our relationships now. Because we all come from different families. In some families, being open and talking things out when they come up, and being direct about what's going on is encouraged, and being generally polite, and you're raised and taught that it's a good thing to be kind, to be polite, and to treat other people well. Whereas with some people, they may not have had that experience, because they probably grew up in homes where things were always tense, there was always violence or shouting, and that basically shapes how they then perceive and perceive conflict, as well as how they communicate in the present. So, for example, somebody who was fortunate enough to grow up in a home where there was love and people were open and honest, and they valued treating each other well and being direct with each other and addressing issues as they came up. Those kind of people, they're more likely to have a more healthy communication with the people in the present. Whereas people, for example, who grew up in households, as I explained, where there was violence, where there was shouting, where there was fighting, they tend to be more defensive, they tend to have more unhealthy communication patterns. And we need to be able to really introspect, and I'd really encourage you to do this and really introspect and look at how it is that you were raised. Share with me in the comments how your socialization and how you were raised is affecting how you're relating to other people. And another thing is insecurities. Okay, these can be caused by many things. Okay, because if, for example, you were a child who was neglected, who wasn't well taken care of growing up, you could find that there's certain insecurities that you have, and you may feel like people don't care about you, and you don't easily open up or communicate with people around you, and you always have this sense and this need for validation because of that, and sometimes what that can cause is that you find that you walk around with fear of rejection, because as I said, because you were neglected as a child, because you weren't treated well as a child, you might be defensive and avoid interacting with people openly and honestly, because or even opening up your life to them, because you feel like if people know what you've been through, or people get to really know who you are, they will reject you. And it's, as I always say, it is important for us to always reflect back on our past, especially in terms of your childhood, how you were raised, and look at, yes, I know that our parents, our caregivers, they probably did the best they could, and yes, sometimes in some areas they failed, and in some areas they did well. And it's really about reflecting on all of that and how it has impacted you and how you communicate today, and ensure that you do what you need to do to make sure that you communicate in a more effective way. And also, feeling insecure can also cause you to have low confidence, and you're highly critical of yourself, and as well as others, and you may find that you unconsciously place certain judgments on other people without those judgments necessarily being accurate. Because, as an example, you to use the shouting example, maybe you perceived your parents or your caregivers who are always shouting at you at being as not loving you or caring about you, and then now as an adult you find that when a friend or someone you're in a relationship with or someone you're working with shouts at you, you then perceive it at, oh, this person doesn't care about me, this person doesn't love me, and you then place that on them when it's not necessarily true. So yeah, it's very important to really look at how you were raised and how that is impacting how you respond now, and to make sure that when you do identify those areas that you then need to change, you actually do something about it, and you actually put in the work to change, because we're all a work in progress. Nobody is perfect, and as we find out these things about ourselves, to make sure that we do better, and we really ensure that we are able to learn how to communicate better with other people in order to improve our relationships. Yeah, so today basically what we've discussed, we've talked about the whole issue of trauma. Trauma is basically when any emotional distress or physical harm that you experienced as a child, which is impacting you now and how you interact and relate to others. We also looked at socialization, as well as some of the social norms and things that we observed and were taught growing up, and how those have impacted how we communicate today, and also how insecurities, as a result of the trauma and maybe as a result of your socialization, can result in you not being sure of yourself and your abilities, and as a result impacting how you communicate, and you find that you don't actually then communicate effectively because of your insecurities. So I would really encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified when I post videos in the future, and that you don't miss out on my content. And before you go, check the description below. I have included a link to a crash course on communicating with difficult people. Do download it and watch it when you have time, just as an extra resource that will help you to communicate better with difficult people.